interference.
Former President Donald Trump has been indicted and arraigned for interfering with the 2020 election. The alleged facts of this conspiracy are astounding. Now, we've covered the legality of the crimes alleged, but it's worth exploring the facts of the crimes as well. Prosecutor Jack Smith lays out a story that is as yet unproven in court, but is the most comprehensive look at the conspiracy to overturn and subvert the 2020 election to date. Now, this story takes place in 2 months between November 14th, 2020 and Joe Biden's swearing-in ceremony on January 20th, 2021. The indictment says that the conspiracy started 11 days after the general election. Now, during that time, we got the worst gang of criminals to work with Donald Trump since Harry and Marv in Home Alone 2. This cast of characters is enumerated in paragraph 8, starting with co-conspirator 1, an attorney who was willing to spread knowingly false claims and pursue strategies that defendants' 2020 re-election campaign attorneys would not. You guessed it, give it up for America's mayor, Rudy Giuliani. Co-conspirator 2, an attorney who devised and attempted to implement a strategy to leverage the vice president's ceremonial role, overseeing the certification proceeding to obstruct the certification of the presidential election. That is top Republican legal mind, John Eastman. Co-conspirator 3, an attorney whose unfounded claims of election fraud the defendant privately acknowledged to others sounded crazy. Nonetheless, the defendant embraced and publicly amplified co-conspirator 3's disinformation. You know her from shipwrecks of old. Give it up for Sidney the Kraken Powell. Then there's co-conspirator 4, a Justice Department official who worked on civil matters and who, with the defendant, attempted to use the Justice Department to open sham election crime investigations and influence state legislatures with knowingly false claims of election fraud. He was a lawyer in the Environment and Natural Resources Division until Trump offered to make him acting Attorney General. Yes, this is Assistant Attorney General Jeffrey, we'll call you when there's an oil spill, Clark. Then there's co-conspirator 5, an attorney who assisted in devising and attempting to implement a plan to submit fraudulent slates of presidential electors to obstruct the certification proceedings. This is appellate lawyer and humorous name-haver Kenneth Cheesebro. Then there is finally co-conspirator 6, a political consultant who helped implement a plan to...
The irony is, by the way, this is from 3 days ago where he finally made a video about the federal case. And since this video came out, of course, the Georgia one happened. So this is like going back in time for the previous. This isn't even the Georgia one. Obviously, there are elements in this that pertain to the Georgia one too, but this is the federal one. This is not even the RICO.
To submit fraudulent slates of presidential electors to obstruct the certification proceeding. Co-conspirator 6 appears to be Boris Epshteyn, one of Trump's advisors, though this has yet to be confirmed. Epshteyn is best known for writing Trump's controversial Holocaust Remembrance Day speech, in which he omitted any mention of Jewish people. Yeah, this has not been a great day for the legal profession because all 6 of the co-conspirators may in fact be lawyers. These 6 co-conspirators could be indicted in the coming weeks or months, or they could be...
So for the record, like Sidney Powell, Rudy Giuliani, and John Eastman are also, and Kenneth Cheesebro actually, and maybe even Jeffrey Clark. Is Jeffrey Clark in the Georgia one too? It's getting confusing because a lot of these people, you know, they were involved in all of the other ones too.
Government witnesses. No one knows at the moment, and it may be up to them. But the bottom line is Trump worked with this cast of co-conspirators to subvert the Electoral Count Act and stop Congress from certifying the election. The ECA governs the process of casting and counting Electoral College votes for president and vice president, and the statute sets forth a timeline for states to appoint presidential elections.
MAGA, make attorneys get attorneys. That sounds like such a lib-ass joke, but it's kind of hitting. Not gonna lie, it's kind of hitting.
November, and for electors to cast their votes in December, and describes the process that Congress should follow when it counts the state's electoral votes in January. These days, each state casts electoral votes based on their state's popular vote, and
yeah, that is a real fucking... That's an old one. Also, my attorney's getting arrested. Yeah, I told him to open up the meet and greet to more than, because it's sold out immediately. Hold on. But it doesn't matter. You can, that's just the meeting gear portion. You can still sign up to go. It's going to be there. It's going to, you can go to the pop-up.
And then sends their electoral votes along with the state executive's certification that they were the state's legitimate electors to Congress to be counted at an official proceeding. Now, the indictment says that Trump and his cronies organized, quote, fraudulent slates of electors in 7 targeted states, Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, New Mexico, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, attempting to mimic the procedure that the legitimate electors were supposed to follow under the Constitution and other federal and state laws. The conspirators caused these fake electors to, quote, meet on the day appointed by federal law on which legitimate electors were to gather and cast their votes, cast fraudulent votes for the defendant, and sign certificates falsely representing that they were legitimate electors. One day before Trump was indicted in D.C., 16 of these fraudulent electors were indicted in Michigan for participating in this scheme. And Trump also attempted to use the power and authority of the Justice Department to launch a sham criminal investigation into voter fraud that didn't occur. This apparently included sending a letter outlining false claims that the DOJ discovered massive election irregularities, and recommending that these states call a special legislative session to determine, quote, who won the most legal votes and consider appointing a new slate of electors. Now, some of the most troubling allegations involve Jeffrey Clark, the environmental lawyer at the DOJ who Trump wanted to appoint as Attorney General in the waning weeks of his term. Clark met secretly with Trump on December 22nd, failing to inform his superiors of the meeting, which is, of course, DOJ protocol. Now, it's obvious why he didn't tell them. Trump and his allies allegedly tried to get acting Attorney General Jeffrey Rosen to sign a letter that made, quote, knowingly false claims of election fraud to officials in the targeted states through a formal letter under the acting Attorney General's signature, thus giving the defendants' lies the backing of the federal government and attempting to improperly influence the target states to replace legitimate Biden electors with defendants. Now, apparently Rosen wanted nothing to do with this, and on December 26th, he told Clark not to meet with Trump again without notice. Clark said the meeting was an accident and he would abide by Rosen's directive. But the next morning, he had a 3-minute phone call with Trump, and afterwards, Trump met with Rosen and the acting Deputy Attorney General and told them that he was considering replacing Rosen with Clark. Quote, people tell me Jeffrey Clark is great. I should put him in. When Rosen refused to say the election was corrupt, Trump told him to, quote, just say that the election was corrupt and leave the rest to me and the Republican congressman. And of course, people are pointing to this quote as evidence that Trump actually
there's more tickets available now.
On December 28th, Clark circulated the letter Trump wanted Rosen to send. And it's important to note here how insane it is that Jeff Clark, who was still officially assigned to the environmental department, was suddenly running point on Trump's maneuvers with the DOJ. He was sending his boss, Jeff Rosen, the same letter that Rosen had already refused to sign. Clark proposed sending versions of this to battleground states.
Meet and greet,
Biden won.
Sunday.
And here's the claims made in that letter, which the government says are false. The Justice Department had, quote, identified significant concerns that may have impacted the outcome of the election in multiple states. The Justice Department believed that in Georgia and other states, 2 valid slates of electors had gathered at the proper location on December 14th, and that both sets of ballots had been transmitted to Congress. That is, co-conspirator 4, Jeff Clark's letter sought to advance the defendant's fraudulent elector plan by using the authority of the Justice Department to falsely present the fraudulent electors as a valid alternative to the legitimate electors. The Justice Department urged the state legislature to convene a special legislative session to create the opportunity to, among other things, choose the fraudulent electors over the legitimate electors. But Rosen rebuffed Clark again and told him not to engage with Trump. On New Year's Eve, Trump summoned Rosen and other DOJ lawyers and told them he might have to change leadership at the DOJ. Now, the Justice Department traditionally operates fairly independently from the White House. Presidents aren't supposed to order the Attorney General to make legal decisions.
Unless it's the Brandon Justice Department. That's right. We got shooters out here, baby. That's right. Brat, brat. According to Donald Trump and his cronies, at least, that is what's happening. Can you imagine? They're like, yeah, Joseph, Robin, and Brandon, who is a literal fucking cadaver, also simultaneously is the mastermind behind the Justice Department just incredibly unfairly prosecuting our big, beautiful boy, Donald Trump, who's done nothing wrong. Who's done everything right, as a matter of fact, and they still indicted him.
But here was Trump insisting that they send the letter. And on January 2nd, Clark continued his insubordination by asking his boss and others to sign the letter Trump wanted to send. He told them that Trump was considering firing Rosen and replacing him with Clark, but that he declined the job if Rosen would just cave and send the letter with false fraud allegations. On January 3rd, Clark revised the fraud letter, changing its language about concerns to a stronger false claim that, quote, as of today, there is evidence of significant irregularities that may have impacted the outcome of the election in multiple states. Now, that was apparently enough for Trump to give him the acting attorney general job because the two met and Clark accepted the job. So Clark spent all day scheming with Trump and testing the limits of the new power. Now, apparently, quote, a deputy White House counsel tried to dissuade Clark from assuming the role of acting attorney general. The deputy White House counsel reiterated to co-conspirator 4, Jeff Clark, that there had not been outcome-determined fraud in the election, and that if the defendant remained in office nonetheless, there would be, quote, riots in every major city in the United States. Jeff Clark responded, quote, well, deputy White House counsel, that's why there's an Insurrection Act.
This guy's lawyer literally tried to say this was out of context. Like, when his lawyer went on CNN, and I think it was like Dana Bash or something, just straight up was like, what did your client mean when he said that's why there's an Insurrection Act? He was like, that was just clipped out of context, actually, in a much larger conversation. I don't really get it. I don't know why it's a big deal. Who amongst us hasn't talked about like violently suppressing an understandable riot due to our actions or fantasizing about that?
Clark apparently then called his boss and told him that he was now the acting attorney general. Rosen, quote, responded that he would not accept being fired by a subordinate and immediately scheduled a meeting with the defendant for that evening. But there was apparently a very strong push by the Justice Department attorneys to stop Trump and Clark from implicating the DOJ in overturning a valid election. In fact, Trump only gave up on his plan to install Clark as AG after, quote, he was told that it would result in mass resignations at the Justice Department and of his own White House counsel. Of course, mass resignations are not something that happen every day, and if the Justice Department lawyers resigned en masse, then it would probably have blown the whistle on what the conspirators were trying to do. Jeffrey Clark drafted a letter to Georgia saying, quote, the Department of Justice is investigating various irregularities in the 2020 election for President of the United States. The department will update you as we're able on investigatory progress, but at this time we have identified significant concerns that may have impacted the outcome of the election in multiple states, including the state of Georgia. Now, this was false. The DOJ plays no role in certifying the winner of the presidential election. State investigations and audits confirm that Biden won the state, and every court which considered the issue ruled against Trump. But the indictment has a whole section on Trump's efforts to overturn the Georgia election results. Now, this section of the indictment is pretty funny because it actually describes two different methods of attack Trump took, one with Sidney Powell and the other with Rudy Giuliani. Now, the Powell...
Two of the best people. How could this have turned out negatively for him? Especially with the Georgia RICO case. I mean, he had two of his best people on it. Two absolute nutty cranks just out and about, releasing Sidney Powell and Rudy Giuliani on the state of Georgia alone should be a criminal act. Once again, typical Trump fashion, not only was he trying to do illegal, corrupt shit, which everyone tries, let's be real, but he was doing it in the worst possible ways. Like, just so incompetent. At no point should you have ever said, oh, these two people, Sidney Powell and Rudy Giuliani, are the best people to release on the job, on any job.
Method only takes up one paragraph because her lawsuit was dismissed so quickly and obviously, but it has some great details. On November 16th, Trump's, quote, executive assistant sent Powell and others a document containing bullet points critical of a certain voting machine company, writing, see attached, please include as is or almost as is in lawsuit. Co-conspirator 3, Sidney Powell, responded 9 minutes later, writing, quote, it must go in all suits in Georgia and Pennsylvania immediately with a fraud claim that requires the entire election to be set aside in those states and machines impounded for non-partisan professional inspection. Now, I can only assume that this was a reply all given the abundance of all caps, but the indictment does not say. 9 days later, Powell filed a lawsuit, quote, against the governor of Georgia, falsely alleging massive election fraud accomplished through the voting machine company's election software and hardware. In the next chunk of the paragraph, we have a vindication of Trump's ability to actually assess legal issues. Quote, before the lawsuit was even filed, the defendant retweeted a post promoting it. The defendant did this despite the fact that when he had discussed co-conspirator 3's far-fetched public claims regarding the voting machine company in private with advisors, the defendant had conceded that they were unsupported and that co-conspirator 3 sounded, quote, crazy. Co-conspirator 3's Georgia lawsuit was dismissed on December 7th. 7th. It's actually kind of refreshing to hear Trump be right on the money for once. Sidney Powell is, in fact, crazy.
I told you this. He's done this for Michael Pillow as well. Okay? He's on the record shitting on his co-defendants, his co-conspirators. So if I'm Sidney Powell, well, first of all, I'm out of my mind. So have fun with that, I guess. The world is very different. The lens that I'm seeing the world from is just entirely different than what is reality. But I'm flipping. I'm flipping like a burger, okay? I'm flipping like the cool side of a pillow. Michael's pillow. I'm just saying, dude. That's crazy.
But this may be a broken...
The worst part is that, the most insane people in Trump's orbit also happen to be the ones who will not flip because they are insane, regardless of the fact that Donald Trump has actively shit on them and most likely is going to use them as the fall guys, for the record. His legal team, if you've been paying attention, has kind of released some of their strategy. They're trying to do it delicately.
You're all I need. You're all I see when I close my eyes and dream. You're all I see. You're all I need, all I need, all I need. You're all I need. You're all I see when I close my eyes and dream. You're all I see. You're all I need, all I need.
Delicately, but of course Trump does nothing delicately or with any kind of tact, and have kind of given the game away by saying, well, these are my lawyers. They were actually operating within the boundaries of legal counsel, and they were giving me legal advice, which is why I was acting on their legal advice, which kind of shifts the blame onto them. I guess it turns into can your lawyer give you improper legal advice? But it doesn't really matter because ultimately you acted on that legal advice and you yourself were given advice from other people over and over again that told you that it was wrong to do this and it was illegal.
Clock type situation. But in the next paragraph, though, the DOJ goes on to the much more worrisome moves by Trump and Rudy Giuliani to pressure Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger into overturning the state's election results. Basically, Trump and Giuliani and Raffensperger go back and forth with Raffensperger and other Georgia officials calmly and repeatedly telling Trump that there were neither dead nor illegitimate voters in large numbers in Georgia. Eventually, this defeatist attitude infected Trump's own team. Quote, as early as mid-November, for instance, the senior campaign advisor had informed Trump that his claims of a large number of dead voters in Georgia were untrue. With respect to the persistent false claim regarding State Farm Arena, on December 8th, the senior campaign advisor wrote in an email, when our research and campaign legal team can't back up any of the claims made by our elite strike force legal team, you can see why we're 0-32 in our cases. I'll obviously hustle to help on all fronts, but it's tough to own any of this when it's all just conspiracy beamed down from the mothership. Yes, believe it or not, the Trump camp did actually refer to this group of some of the worst lawyers who have ever practiced in America as the elite strike force legal team.
Again, this is simply a refresher for the federal case. This is not even the one for the Georgia RICO. I know that there are a lot of similarities with the Georgia one because some of the federal case involves Georgia as well. Just making sure you understand there's more. Legal just simply does not have enough time to cover all of the criminal misconduct that Trump engages in. When is the riot and loot event? What's that?
Now, as you can probably tell, Trump is probably going to need a really good lawyer based on these facts. But if you need a great lawyer, my firm, the Eagle Team, can help. If you've had an injury or death in the family, suffered a data breach, or were involved in a car crash, we can represent you or help find the right attorney who can. Just click on the link in the description for a free consultation with my team. Because you don't just need a legal team, you need the Eagle Team.
You need the Eagle Team.
But of course,
everybody loves the segues at the top of the hour when it's motherfucking legal Eagle doing it. Okay? When I do it, everybody's like, boo, your segues suck. It's like, at the top of the hour, there's a 3-minute ad break, folks. Okay? There's a 3-minute ad break. That's just how it works. If you no longer want to see those ads, all you need to do is subscribe, which you can do for $5 or for free with Twitch Prime by connecting your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account. Okay? Where you get 1 free Prime subscription a month. Use it on your favorite broadcaster. Hopefully that's me, guys. All right? You're an illegal beagle. Because he's good with it. How about hire him for legal advice on ad segues? Here's the 3-minute ad break now. What is this? Maybe if you didn't give up on being a lawyer. Man, I got a 637 on that. That sucks. You stole his bank robber analogy. First of all, I've been doing the bank robber analogy since day one, and it wasn't his analogy. It was another legal analyst that he quoted. I just keep forgetting what his name is. He has a better suit than you. Okay. Well, you guys are just being fucking hurtful now. Also, he has a basic ass suit. What the fuck do you mean? Hold up. What is happening here? Oh, there's an overlay. Keep track of points. Sorry. You don't have a tie, not professional? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I just have a microphone hiding it. What? Guys, I'm wearing a fucking 3-piece today. Okay? I'm popped off on this. That's crazy. I am trying to figure out what's happening with the 2v2v2v2v2. It's supposed to start at 4 p.m. And of course, our wonderful cast of content creators are seemingly not ready for it. Set up your basic no pocket square Andy. Okay, well, I'm rocking a 3-piece. And this is literally 2 different types of suits. I also specifically picked this one because I thought the reason why I picked this one is because I thought this would be like the most Southern lawyer that says like, well, I'm no big city lawyer, sir. Like it's a very, well, I'm no big city lawyer looking suit. You know what I mean? Look at this. Like here, I'm gonna go up. Order! And it doubles as a Ron Burgundy ass fit, too. Order! Order! My cousin Vinny looking ass? Yeah, hell yeah. Bro, I'm telling you, this will create a TikTok thirst trap moment. Bro, I'm telling you, this will create a TikTok thirst trap moment. Just show us the vest. This? Why would this? I don't think so. Benoit Blanc? Yeah, that's me. Private investigator Benoit Blanc at your service. I do declare this court case over, Your Honor. That's right. Rolling up my sleeves to get into the goddamn business. The business, Your Honor, is the law. The rule of the law. I do declare my client, Donald John Trump, has not broken the rule of the law, Your Honor. That's right. I would not be standing in front of you on this glorious holy day if I believed it myself. Why he looked like Chamber? Oh my God. Kind of. All right, what's happening here? What's happening? What's happening? What's happening? Oh my stars, Hotlanta. I've been playing so much Red Dead 2 the last couple of weeks, and you would fit right in St. Dennis. If I had my way, Arthur Morgan would never be prosecuted. HasanAbi doesn't know how to roll up the sleeves. Yes, I do. Except this one, I'm too lazy, and I didn't want to unbutton and then double cuff it. Folks, I went to school in Turkey. We had to wear every day.